Steve Merrill. We've got NBA, we've got college hoops. We haven't done much college hoops on this show yet. I know over at Wager Talk on the YouTube page that you've been doing Saturdays. Now that football's over, you're going to do weekend days of college hoops action. What have you seen throughout college basketball so far?
Yeah, so Arizona won again last night. I bring that up because I thought that might be the game where they finally fell. They were only a 1.5-point favorite at BYU last night. They held on for a 3-point win, a very narrow win. They remain 21-0, and the only other undefeated team is actually going tonight. Miami of Ohio, 20-0, is about a 9.5, 10-point favorite. At some point, one of these teams is going to lose. And by the way, the only other time I think that Arizona really is going to have a tough test. The only game they're going to be an underdog the rest of the season is in about 3 Saturdays. Late February, they're at Houston. And that, of course, will be in my Saturday, as you mentioned, top 25 video. That'll be a big game. So I think that'll be the one that maybe gets Arizona. They're more of a high-flying offense. Houston, a good half-court defense. But I bring that up because I still think the best team in the country is Michigan. And I rank them as the number 1 overall squad ahead of Arizona, ahead of Houston, and ahead of Duke. And they play Nebraska tonight. There's 365 Division I college basketball teams, Ariel, and Michigan has the number 1 2-point defense and 2-point offense in the nation. They're the best shooting team offensively and the best defensive team from 2-point range out of 365. That's how good they are. And, when you're looking to win 6 games in a row in March Madness, you need this consistency from the 2-point range. Teams can get hot from the 3, and anybody can beat anybody on one given day because of it. But it's very hard to stay hot for 6 straight games. Louisville last night takes more 3-point shots than anybody in the nation. Over 54% of their total shots are threes. And we saw what happened. They lost by 31 to Duke. Duke much better down low. So I still think Michigan's the team to beat this year. Arizona's getting a lot of love. They're getting every first place vote right now in the AP poll, but I've actually got Michigan as the best team in the country.
How much are you willing to lay with Michigan tonight?
Yeah, the thing about the 2-point offense is that, you get more consistent scoring, so they can definitely win by margin. And you look at some of their recent wins, they just beat Ohio State by 12. They beat Indiana by 14. Almost every win this year has been by double digits. I project about an 11-point win here in this game, though. I rate Nebraska as a top 15 team, though, this year. So this is going to be a competitive game here, and anything is possible. So I really don't want to lay much more than 10 or 11, and the current line is 12. By the way, it opened 10.5. It's up to 11.5, 12. There has been some sharp money on Michigan, but at this point, I think it's getting a little pricey.
People in the chat also talking about Michigan State. I know they're in action tonight up against Rutgers, laying 14.5. How do you see Michigan State?
Yeah, it's really a good year of basketball in the state of Michigan. You got Michigan and Michigan State. Of course, the Detroit Pistons playing as well as anybody in the Eastern Conference. Wager Talk Hub, as you know, is in Detroit, Michigan, so they're excited.
John Michael's going to be thrilled you said that if he's listening.
A lot of good Michigan basketball. I think the Spartans right now are probably like a 2 seed if the tournament was to begin today. I got Michigan as a 1 seed. So this is a really good squad here. And I project about a 15-point win against Rutgers tonight. And it's on the road. Strange things can always happen when you're away from home. And laying 14.5 on the road is a little dicey. So the question becomes, can Rutgers hang here? Problem is Rutgers does not take many 3-point shots. The one weakness of the Michigan State defense, they're always big and physical down low. Great rebounding team with Izzo every year, but they give up a lot of threes. Rutgers doesn't take many threes, and they don't shoot the 3 well. So I think this game does have a little less upset alert because of that. If you're going to play it, I would still lay the 14.5 with Michigan State.
You did say crazy things can happen on the road, and we do have a good matchup tonight with a ranked opponent in Arkansas, ranked 15th on the road, laying 2.5 at Oklahoma. Short spread there, total 167.5, about minus 2.5 on the road. Is that something crazy things could happen?
Yeah, I think home court is more legit, or home advantage is stronger in college basketball than any sport I handicap. The NFL, it's almost non-existent nowadays. It's gone from being that standard 3 for decades down to about a point. Some are 0 now in the regular season. That's why we see so many NFL road favorites. Playoffs a little bit different, obviously. We saw home dogs do well once again this season. By the way, Ariel, I thought of you. Did I not say on Last Call Sunday that Denver line was just like Chicago last week, in which I wanted to play against the Bears, I wanted to play against the Broncos, but the point spreads were too high? I meant to clip that because they lost by exactly 3 and covered. So
I was very glad I had Denver, and I was actually very mad because the Patriots stopped throwing the football, and it really needed Drake May to go over his pass attempts. The stupid snow needed to hold out for another couple hours.
Yeah, and I had some shows I gave out Stidham over 200 passing yards. I didn't have a chance. I knew that early on, the way they were blitzing him, and then when the weather kicked in. But yeah, home field in the NFL playoffs is legit. Not much in the regular season. Home court in the NBA is not what it used to be. The travel factor, fatigue isn't much for these squads anymore. College football, there is some home field advantage, but it's the most extreme in college basketball for several reasons. First of all, arenas like Cameron are unusual. The sight lines are different in some of the smaller gyms versus the big gyms. Human nature of the officials. They might not realize it, but home teams get more calls. The crowd gets on them. But the biggest reason is just the travel factor. Unlike the NBA, in which they're taking private jets, they're sleeping on the plane, they got plenty of leg room. These 6'10", 20-year-olds are on commercial flights sometimes, or they're busting it most of the time now that we're in conference play. And they're playing 2 or 3 road games in a row, and the offensive numbers are definitely weaker on the road than they are for home teams. So, yeah, I do like Oklahoma in this game. I think it's a good spot for the Sooners to get back on track. And with Arkansas coming off back-to-back wins, big home game this Saturday against Kentucky after 2 straight home wins, this is one of those kind of sandwich situations. Oklahoma's lost 6 straight games in conference. They're just 1-6 straight up. I think this is a do-or-die game for Oklahoma. I do like the home court edge tonight as a home dog.
Well, speaking of conferences, there's another big conference game tonight, which based on what I think I'm seeing in the conference, Marquette's 2-8 in the conference. And then you've got Creighton 6-3. However, Creighton's only laying 1.5 at Marquette tonight, 9:30 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, Shaka might be on the hot seat. Shaka Smart, of course, took VCU to the Final Four back in 2011. He'd been under Donovan at Florida, and he came up through the ranks. He had the Texas job, didn't do great at Texas, and he really hasn't done great at Marquette either. I saw that as well. I had to double check that when I saw they were just 2-8 in the conference, because I broke this game down earlier today on the best betting show ever with the president, Joe Ranieri. And I think they're 7-14 overall. Another one of those home dogs that maybe they're on the hot seat. You take a look here, but it's hard for me to back Marquette. They're playing some terrible defense. Creighton's not been great defensively either, and that's why we've seen this total go from 151 up to 155. But I actually used a free play on the under in this game on the show earlier today. And Marquette does not shoot the 3 well. Creighton doesn't give up many threes. And the way Marquette scores under Shaka for years has been that havoc defense that he started at VCU a decade ago. Creighton does not turn the ball over. So I think it's going to be difficult for Marquette to score in this game. That's another reason I would not look at that home dog tonight. But I do think the under 155 has some value.
Craig Abel wants to know, speaking of Kentucky, would you bet them 6.5 plus 6.5 versus Vandy?
Kentucky's an interesting team. I think they've paid over $20 million to these guys. And Pope came out after the first few weeks when they started 2-3 and said, "I've done a terrible job." You got to love it when a coach has said, "I've done a terrible job." So I kind of had them on my radar as maybe a team at some point they start playing up to their talent level, can turn things around. I've used them in select spots here or there this season. I still think they're probably a little undervalued now based on the slow start. So, yeah, I'm not afraid to lean with them tonight, but they've been a really random kind of bipolar team this season.